Just give me a little bit of peace, steady job and some food to eat. Just give me a little bit of peace, steady job and some food to eat. Just give me a little bit of
DustyVisionTV, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Please tell a friend about my program. Bronx is in the building tonight. Really looking forward to chatting with this dude. Been a really nice supporter of the show, and got a chance to get to know him. Looking forward to learning a little bit about where he's from and his background, and to talk a little bit of hip hop and such. Ladies and gentlemen, on the line, I have OG Steve. What up, man?
What's good, Dusty?
Let everybody know where you grew up.
I grew up in the Northeast Bronx, Alton Avenue to be exact. That's my section.
Okay. So Northeast Bronx. We don't hear too much about the North Bronx. Obviously, the South Bronx due to hip hop. We've heard a lot about back in the day being one of the hubs of where hip hop came from. But tell us a little bit about North Bronx and what are the differences between North and South Bronx?
Well, I would say, we have our similarities with all the Bronx and stuff like that. We have some of the same tenets and stuff like that. But I would say, there's little cultural differences. We have a heavy Jamaican influence in the North Bronx, Italian, Puerto Rican, African American, Albanian, decent amount of Mexicans up there as well. So you'll see more like Jamaican restaurants, Italian restaurants, Puerto Rican restaurants, Dominican restaurants. If you go up past White Plains Road, you hit where I grew up, Alton Avenue, you go past there, it's pretty much a very Jamaican influenced area. You'll hear backyard parties going on, Jamaican bars and stuff like that. So it's a slightly different vibe. And sometimes people forget that the North Bronx don't exist, but
from what I understand, South Bronx has a lot more projects to where North Bronx is more kind of there are projects. Shout out to Baychester, my boy.
One of my good friends, his father used to live in the Baychester house.
Okay,
so that's not that far from where I grew up. I grew up on Alton Avenue, kind of in between Boston Road and White Plains Road.
Okay.
So if you just went and traveled up Boston Road, you hit all the different areas: Gun Hill, Burt, Gun Hill, and then you can walk all the way to Edenwall if you want, and then just make a little turn into Baychester, really.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Allerton, I see you rocking those caps, and do you make your own merchandise too?
Yeah, we had recently kind of got into it because I don't mind supporting people from other areas and other sections, but we've always been proud of where we're from. So besides just rocking hats with A's on them, decided to start putting Allerton on it. If you go rock a hat from wherever else, sports team that you like, or a rapper or whatever, their section or whatever, why not rock where you're from as well?
Yeah. No, that's the best thing to do, man. I love that shit. That's dope. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it, man, because I'm checking out. I got a chance to look at your Instagram today, and I see some type of shirts that I've never seen before. I don't know if you make shirts or you just know where to get the custom shit, but I know where
to get a lot of custom shit. I know certain places and certain people that kind of independent people, startups and stuff like that. Sometimes they have gear. I know little shops where they have the street signs and stuff like that. And then due to watching the podcast and supporting other people, they got merch. So I might be one dude in the Bronx that you might see rocking a shirt that might have been sent out to me from Compton or somewhere, or LA or Georgia or Texas or wherever it might be from, because I just support the real. Wherever they're from, that's what I support. I support the real. I'm supposed to make it's really about some real stuff, not some copycat stuff or, everybody kind of trying to do the same thing or jump on the same wave or the same topic and stuff like that. I like people that are unique and got organic content,
I'm a bet that my man OG Steve is the only dude in the North Bronx with a OG golf hat. I saw you rocking one of those. I was like, nice, dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. That's dope, man. Well, shit. All right, so Northeast Bronx, Allerton. What was your upbringing like?
I mean, I guess you kind of say it was basically a basic hood upbringing, raised by a single mother, struggling to take care of me, you know, and she took care of my grandmother too and taking care of herself. My father, like most fathers in the 80s, kind of like, you know, made a baby and then disappeared. So, and it was basically her raising me on her own. So, you know, grew up there and mom had to work a lot. You know, you end up in the streets, running around doing little stuff, getting into little activities and so on and so forth. But, you know, nothing too crazy, but I would say you get your average hood upbringing for a dude in the Bronx or anywhere for that matter, whether it's the Bronx, you know, Chicago, Philly, Compton, wherever, you know?
Yeah. Now, once again, we hear a lot about the South Bronx. On the northeast side, where you guys, you know, experiencing, you know, the fallout from the whole crack epidemic and things like that?
Oh yeah, of course. That hit, you know, every inner city, every urban area, anywhere that people were at. You know, the crack era was kind of like, I think why the majority of people my age range, 'cause I'm 39 years old, is the majority of the reason why dudes didn't have fathers in the house. You know, your father was either smoking or got caught selling or something along those lines, and he's just not there. Or he might have just been a loser that didn't want to be there for his kids. But I think the majority of times you had people either getting hooked on it or they got in trouble for selling it. You know, you also had a lot of dudes, a lot of those baby boom guys that they came back from Vietnam. They weren't getting the right help from the government or whatever that they risked their lives for. And they ended up self-medicating on stuff. And whether they were on dope or they were on crack, they, you know, became a victim to it. And then my generation of young men were left in houses with no father figures, you know, and mothers that had to work enough for the mother and the father, raising you by herself. So you were kind of raised by your mom in the streets, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, man. Shout out to the single moms out there, and fuck the dads who decided to leave. That's some bullshit, man. That's some bullshit. That's one of the biggest problems in the urban community is single parent.
Although I would say my generation is getting a little bit better. You know, I know a lot of dudes who their fathers weren't present or they were barely present. And I'm not going to say everybody is a perfect father, but good amount of guys that I know that have kids at least in their child's life or trying to be in their child's life or attempting to be in their child's life. Whereas our fathers were totally absent, you know, and then you would have like that one uncle or something that he happens to be around. He's talking to you, but most of his peers aren't there for their kids.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, shout out to the men that step up, man.
Just give me a little bit of peace, steady job and some food to eat. Just give me a little bit of peace, steady job and some food to eat. Just give me.
All right, Allerton Ave, boom. You're growing up Northeast Bronx. When is the first time you heard anything about Crips and Bloods?
I would kind of say Crips. I want to say like the early mid 90s. You know, I would say the first gangs that I saw with my own eyes that I knew they were, you know, on something were like the Latin Kings and the Nietas. There were other little block crews that existed, you know, but they weren't really as far as like, you know, with the same amount of violence or organization. It would later come with like the Crips and Bloods. I would say the most organized group back then would probably be the Latin Kings. But I saw the Crips before I saw the Bloods, you know, because the Bloods, they started on Rikers Island in New York. They don't really have like a direct tie to California or anything like that. They, even though some of them will say they do, I don't know if they're confused or not, but they started on Rikers Island, but a lot of those guys ended up doing bids. So they went upstate and did time. So it wasn't like they saw the streets immediately after they created what they created. You know, it's just the little guys that they put on that were coming out of Rikers Island, not really knowing the whole thing. And I would say that was probably like 96, 97, where I really actually started seeing Bloods on the street, you know, or you would hear the stuff on the news, because before you would end up seeing a Blood for yourself, you would hear it on the news with them cutting people and doing silly nonsense and stuff that I didn't really feel was like manly, or, you know, because it was like crimes that didn't make sense to me. You know, like the Latin Kings or the Crips, they did more stuff like if they were to attack somebody, it would be somebody their age or older, and it would be a man, not like robbing an old lady purse or nothing like that. or cutting somebody that isn't banging or nothing like that. They were basically about their money, about women, protecting their homies, their areas, and so on and so forth. But, you know, the Crips I saw in the early 90s, I would say the Bloods I saw like towards like near the end of the 90s. If I really saw a presence of Bloods being all over in different sections. In the early 90s, probably in the late 80s, you had different Crip gangs that was out here. Some might have some origin like directly from Los Angeles, but a lot of what it was people either migrating from New Jersey or Texas, where they already had gangs from LA going out there, and they either had subsets or their gangs came out here like that, where they moved from New Jersey or Texas up to New York, you know, or a lot of dudes also had family in Virginia, North Carolina, and the South had gang banging, I would say, a little before New York,
right,
as far as Crips and Bloods. So the way a lot of Crips came out here was either guys went out of town to make money, you know, and the people they were with were Crips, and they got put on out there, or they were visiting their cousin, and their cousin had some Crips out there, you know, irregardless of what set they were. And that's the way a lot of Crips came out here. You even had some Crips come through immigration, you know, because I know there was dudes that came up here from Belize, but from when I heard they came from Belize, like, so people got deported from LA, went to that country, put people on in that country, and then they came up here.
Yeah.
Kind of like a Crip version of MS-13, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Yeah. You're solidifying a lot of stuff that I've definitely heard. Did you eventually turn Crip, correct?
Yeah, I would say in the mid-90s I turned Crip. Yeah.
Okay. Take me back to, you know, what made you make that decision?
Well, little by little, like I said, the neighborhood the first gang I really came in contact with, because the area I lived in was kind of a diverse area. You had Puerto Ricans, Italians, Jamaicans, African Americans, a whole bunch of people living together. So it wasn't really like no real segregation and stuff like that. And then in the 90s, we were a generation where we were all cool with each other anyway. So I saw the way the Latin Kings were, I saw the way the Crips were, and the Latin Kings were kind of phasing out to a certain extent in my area due to like their heavy hitters kind of going to jail and stuff and so forth. And little by little, I noticed the people who I may have went to school with or whatever, or came in contact with, the people that were more likely to backstab you or do some snaky kind of stuff, ended up turning Blood, you know. And then one of my close friends happened to basically he was Crip, he was banging, and there became a decision where, you know, that we would have a neighborhood Crip gang in our area, not neighborhood like a neighborhood Crip like that, but you know, we would have an organization, organic Crip organization in the neighborhood to represent Allerton, and it started from there. And it was us combating what was the Bloods at that point in time. And it wasn't like nowadays, it was dudes that were wearing all red or all blue, you know, Latin Kings wearing all yellow, or, you know, it was right in your face with it. You also had to deal with, at that time, Giuliani ran the city, so the cops was crazy as hell too.
Oh yeah.
You know, so even if you may have not even been in the gang, you were getting thrown on the wall, asked a million questions, stopped inside of buildings and all types of stuff. So everything was right in your face.
We had a point in time in LA where we had some very corrupt cops. Obviously, there's still some, unfortunately, but where the whole organization.
I think we actually shared a police commissioner or something like that between New York and Los Angeles.
Let's see, Lee Baca.
Yeah.
I'll look.
I'm trying to remember his name, but I know he at one point he was in New York, and then I also used to see old tapes, kind of like from the 90s, and he was like the police commissioner. So we might have shared the same tyranny from the same guy, just in different decades. Yeah, but like in the 90s, it was real, and we weren't with letting people run around robbing little kids or cutting girls or any of that kind of, you know, bullshit that was going on, because we didn't really view that as like manly activities, you know, like, you know, you should be hanging out with your homies, protecting your community, your homies, your families, whatever like that. To me, I don't see getting stripes and cutting an old lady or cutting a person that's not even banging and shit. Like it, you know, so I think that's why a lot of you started seeing more emergence of Crips and Latin Kings and any other gang that was really willing to combat the Bloods at that point in time. You know, like the Crips prior to that, they were in particular areas, but they were more on hustling, getting money, you know, making little connects here and there. They weren't necessarily like looking to recruit a whole bunch of people, whereas the Bloods were kind of recruiting almost anybody. So then you would have like a lot of guys that really wouldn't fight you. They were scared to shoot a fade with you one-on-one, but when they got all their homies with them, they all pumped up with a battery in their back. But if you see them alone, they scared.
Just give me a little bit of peace, steady job and some food to eat. Just give me a little bit of peace, steady job and some food to eat. Just give me.
Talk to me about what you know about the Zulu Nation and how their impact on New York and things like that.
I would say I know their origin. You know, what it kind of was in the 70s, New York was a little crazy. We had gangs back then. They weren't like Bloods and Crips, but you had gangs like the Black Spades, the Golden Guineas, Spanish Lords, and a whole bunch of other groups. And they were kind of more on like an ethnic vibe where they were more like banging their nationality kind of thing. And there was a lot of wars going on, especially in, I believe, that Bronx River, Soundview kind of area, where I think that was basically the base for the Black Spades. And I guess when the 80s hit and it became a little more unity, they were looking to morph into something else, maybe something less violent. So, or, less clashing with different nationalities. And I know the Zulus started back then. Most of the Zulus I came in contact with, though, I would probably say from the early 90s and stuff like that, they were kind of non-violent, non-standoffish. You know, you might have had one or two that might have been a tough, crazy guy, but that's because he was a tough, crazy guy, not because he was really Zulu. You know, he was him himself. So they might have been like, yeah, watch out, we got that guy. But they were really known as a force to be worried about or nothing like that, you know.
Gotcha. So that leads to my next question. Have you been keeping up with the Africa Bambata scandal, Hassan Campbell, or does that ring a bell?
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course, I heard about it a few years ago. There were different platforms talking about it. I think Star talked about it.
Yeah.
There was a few other platforms that they were talking about Africa Bambata. I know a lot of the older dudes in New York claim that they used to hear gay rumors about him. I never really heard that. I knew he was like a little odd, from my taste in the way he dressed. I saw that
too, yeah.
And talked and everything like that. Wasn't really like a Bronx, North Bronx, South Bronx, whatever. He didn't really have that Bronx vibe to me. He kind of had more like a village people kind of vibe. But, and there, like I said, their gang wasn't really known to really be out there. Not that, I'm not saying all of them were soft or anything of that nature now, but they weren't really known to really be on nothing. They were kind of like the gang you join when you don't want to bang, but you still want to be in the gang claiming something. So, and Hassan Campbell, I seen him uprise, during the whole scandal, him and the other guy. His name, I can't remember at the time. I think Ronald Savage or something like that.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Beast Stinger.
And what's funny too is I seen an interview with where Lord Jamal kind of like basically like showed that Bambata was lying because he used to actually come to Jazzy J's studio, which funny enough was on Allison Avenue. And I guess Brand Nubian would come over there to record records with the Zulus and stuff like that. And I guess B Stinger, aka Ronald Savage, was like the receptionist or something like that. And he would be the one that would be like, okay, Dusty, we'll see you next week. Do you need a cab? So they were saying that that's the guy that would basically call your cab and book your session at the studio. So for Africa Bambata to say he didn't know him is like, they know that he's lying because they were there.
Yeah.
And that's like a famous studio in hip hop, especially in the Bronx. It was Jazzy J's studio. So he had a lot of Zulus, 5%ers, and whoever else was making music at the time.
So where do you stand, now? Because there's a lot of information out there. I ride with Hassan Campbell sometime, but then he just goes off the charts, and I'm just like...
Well, I mean, if we're talking about, them exposing Bambata and whoever else was covering that shit up, like, expose them. They should be punished. I don't think that shit has no room for nothing nowhere. You know, I don't care if they were in the beginnings of hip hop or whatever. A pedophile is a pedophile is a pedophile. You know, like, I might have maybe some old ways of thinking, but I don't even think pedophiles should exist.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I agree, homie.
You know,
murder.
You know, like they should be exactly. TOS.
One bullet.
Terminate on sight. You know, but you know, and then you have some other people like KRS-One who I used to have respect for, supposedly said, "Oh, but you know, he this and that," like trying to give him an excuse, and I'm like, nah.
Yo,
but
let me stop you right there because about 6 years ago when Star released this thing, I did a podcast and people could look it up. It was on my old podcast. But the title of the podcast is, and I still feel this way to this day, and that's why I didn't watch this last verses, is fuck KRS-One. For his reaction to that, for his response, I was just like, I'm good on him, dog. Like, if you don't denounce that shit off top, like, what? Exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like, what? So I was like, I've been fucking, and I was a big KRS fan, dog, and that right there fucked me up, and I can't even listen to Love's Gonna Get You. I can't listen to none of that shit anymore, man.
Yeah, because it's almost like he's okaying it.
Yeah, I know that sounds weird, and I'm taking it extra, but I'm like that with R. Kelly too. I can't listen to R. Kelly music anymore.
Exactly, you know, I can't listen to R. Kelly. I can't listen to KRS-One.
Yeah, I'm just keeping it real.
Nicki Minaj too. Like she's married to a rapist. You know what I'm saying?
So I'm not hip to that story. I got to look. Yeah,
she's married to a look. She got three different types of sex offenders around her. She got her husband's a convicted rapist. And he's somehow an OG blood and one of these new blood gangs that's out here. You know, like that's you know, kind of where we differ in politics too, with the Crips and Bloods in New York. Like, we're not having rapists or any kind of weirdos like being, you know, repping Crip or anything like that. And I think the older school Bloods probably wouldn't have had him either. But her husband's a convicted rapist, her brother's a pedophile, and then after Tekashi 6ix9ine, who's already known for having some weirdo sex charges before he became a rat. She made songs with him after the people knew he was a rat and after people knew he had sex charges. So she has some like weird shit about her. Like, you know, it's, you know, she's not doing something, but there's like sex offenders hovering around her. So I can't fuck with her because she fucks with them.
I told her I loved her. Started skipping, the record started skipping, and she told me I was tripping. She said she wanna see the city, but she don't wanna ride the city bus. Because she's new to the town, naive eyes look for truth. The ears are lost in the sound, brains are lost in the cloud, dead from all of the smoke. That's the reason why the ostrich hides his head in the ground. That's the reason why the monster even puts on a mask. And we turn the city green to blend in with the grass. The city scene made a crash, I fell in love with it twice. Had to tell her goodbye cause she fell in love with the night. I couldn't keep up, I tried to bring it down from the sky, but the clouds were so nice that she took a nap for a while. And when she woke up, I finally had a kid and a lady. Bone told me he saw the other day with the baby. Ain't life crazy? I think about it once in a while when it's cloudy outside and the sun goes.
None of these drugs do what they supposed to. Yeah. And what's the point of hurting people that you're close to?
Just give me a little bit of peace, steady job and some food to eat. Just give me a little bit of peace, steady job and some food to eat. Just give me.
Talk to me about Tekashi 6ix9ine, man. That's, you know, home base, NYC. What were your thoughts, you know, when this dude, when he first came out, and this little Mexican dude with rainbow hair?
I mean, I thought he was a clown. Like, I thought he was a clown. Like, and the Mexican stuff, like I said, in New York, we're a little more diverse. You'll find gang members where it might be a predominantly black gang, but they'll have a Puerto Rican guy, a Dominican guy, an Italian guy, or something randomly just mixed in the middle. So him being Mexican wasn't too much off, but like a 3-foot, you know, Mexican kid with rainbow hair, you know, hopping around like a soccer jersey on or whatever he was doing, that shit looked weird to me. And I don't think it would have existed in the 90s. Like, I don't think any non-trays, any Bloods for that matter, would have liked that representation of them. A little guy with rainbow hair and sex charges and a sexual position tattooed a million times over his face and whatever the kind of nonsense he was with. You know, so this before him snitching, I was like, who the fuck is this? He looks like a clown. He looks like Bozo the Clown. You know, and I think he made, you know, I'm from the other side, so, but he made the Bloods out here look bad to me. Of course, you had dudes that were more worried about getting a bag, chasing behind him, you know, taking pictures with him and whatever, but that wasn't none of us. But I thought he was a weirdo from the beginning, you know, and when he started doing dumb shit, I already told a lot of people, I was like, watch, he's gonna rap. I mean, look at him. You could tell he's not built for any of this. And I was right.
Yeah, man. So now, you know, in hindsight, he's walking around with no security, allegedly. And all this stuff is alleged. Everything we're saying, I don't want, because motherfuckers try to sue people nowadays and shit. So this is all allegedly, but we know what's up. But anyway, he's walking around without security. You know, he's, you know, picking fights with people, throwing money in clubs, going to 21 Savage concerts. How is this guy, and I'm not advocating violence, but how is this dude still alive?
I think we live in a different day and age. You know, a lot of stuff that was once taboo in the 70s, 80s, and 90s ain't taboo anymore. You know, you had a lot of people, like I said, even before he was a rat or doing any of that, like I don't even know how people were supporting him prior to that. You know, because he looked like a clown. He still had them sex charges, you know. But we live in a different day and age. You know, back in the day, snitches get stitches or end up dead in ditches. You know, and you were doing any kind of that weird shit that is now okay was taboo, but now, and it was once taboo is now seeming to be okay. You know, so like back in the day, he probably would have got his face cut or something, but he also knows where to go. You know, I don't think he's like walking around Bushwick and Brownsville or nothing like that in Brooklyn. You know, a lot of parts of Brooklyn are gentrified. So if you go there at 7 in the morning and it's a gentrified block now that was once hard or something like that, and we don't know, but the cops could be right there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but it's a different day and age. I mean, you know, Harlem once, you probably wouldn't have rats running around there either, but you got Alpo from, if anybody's seen the movie Paid in Full, he's running around Harlem. And he's running around Harlem, you know, like with no problem, shaking hands, taking pictures, probably kissing babies. It's a different day and age, you know? And, you know, back in the day, somebody was a snitch or doing any kind of weird activities, they were marked out, a neighborhood marked out the set. You know, I remember stuff like that happened back in the day where I remember a dude was given an ultimatum. Like, they found out he was on some chomo shit. He was told he had to leave within 24 hours. Nowadays, who knows what's going to go on? Not in my hood, but other hoods I can't say.
Man. Yeah, it's real shit, man. Loving where this conversation is going. I also noticed that you were a big Nipsey Hussle supporter. R.I.P.
Oh, yeah.
to Nipsey. All right,
yeah,
so take yourself back to, what was it, April 1st or March 31st? I always, because I remember waking up. I think it was
March 31st. I heard he got shot.
Okay.
April 31st, they said he died.
So okay,
but, yeah.
Okay. So all right, you take yourself back to that day, man. Nipsey Hussle, you know, someone who was doing a lot for the community, just kind of going in a positive route.
You know, so Nipsey was out there in the streets actually with everything, with the activities, but you know, saw the error in some of his ways and maybe saw where things needed to change. You know, we come, you know, Nipsey's maybe a few years younger than me, so we both come from the era in the streets where there wasn't no cameras all over the place, and you know, there wasn't like a rat epidemic and stuff like that. Nowadays it's different. There's cameras everywhere, you know, and these kids do their rah-rah stuff on the internet, but a lot of these youngsters are just all snitching on each other. So you got to try to find a better way, you know, and sometimes it's a person that actually came from that that's actually going to help get the people out of it instead of somebody who's really coming from the outside, or somebody who, like I said, is just staring out their window, writing down their raps about what they see going on outside. Nipsey was outside.
When we were coming up, gangster rappers lied about what they did on record. You know what I mean? But nowadays, they're telling the truth, and they're all getting arrested. They're literally going into detail. Let's go FBG Duck. I'm sure you know the name, and Pop Smoke. RIP to both those guys. They just, you know, caught up with the killers, and the killers are starting to talk and things like that. And like FBG Duck specifically, a lot of the people who were on the opposite side were making songs, you know, graphic songs. And basically the FBI said that the way that they were able to piece this thing together was just sitting on YouTube and listening to rap songs about killing this.
Well, yeah, because what you have is like a lot of self-snitching. So you had like kind of like a, you know, in the 90s you had gangster rap where it was kind of dudes that a lot of them were like just seeing other people doing and rapping about what's going on in their neighborhood. Then you had dudes like, I would say, more like in between my generation, your generation, where they actually maybe did some of that shit, but they were smart enough to like change up the names and shit like that in their songs, so you couldn't like get convicted, you know. So you know, whether it's the Nipseys, you know, a lot of West Coast artists I listen to, they were coming up around that time. The Nipseys, the Kendricks, the J-Rocks, and stuff like that. And they were talking some real shit, and they were actually from the streets, but they were all smart enough not to like self-incriminate themselves. I think what it is we're coming up in a day and age where everybody's on the internet, everybody's on Instagram, everybody's on Facebook. And instead of getting the old clout of, oh, you heard Dusty did this, or you heard Steve did that, just on the streets, they want everybody in the world to know it. So and that clout gets them either dead or in jail. And they snitch on themselves, so the cops or the feds or whoever's going after them don't really have to put up that much work because you got everything on. You're playing out the whole shit on the internet. Mm-hmm. You told them about who you killed, how you killed them, where you put the gun, all that type of dumb shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then they'll probably be the first people to be like, who's snitching? I'll be like, you dummy. You snitched on yourself.
Exactly, man. The first one's to call out a snitch. Yeah, man. And and not only that, they're also getting really disrespectful with it. You know, I know you know that they're filming their videos at grave sites of other ops and, you know, just doing the most disrespectful stuff, man. What are your thoughts on that aspect of hip hop?
I mean, I think it's stupid and disrespectful because I'm not gonna say like dudes in the streets weren't doing fucked up shit to each other back in the day, but recording it and everything and then disrespecting the dead. Because most of the people that are disrespecting the dead, people in these songs or in videos, you weren't doing that when he was alive. You weren't going in his face and saying that shit. You know, so like you're doing this shit after he dead or she's dead or whoever's dead. And you're not doing it to their face. And you're doing it for likes. You're not doing it because you got the heart or anything like that. Because let's face it, these kids either going to get killed, get themselves locked up, and then in between, a bunch of their friends going to rat on them. That's just the way this new vibe is.
And that friend who ratted on him is probably going to release an album and get 1 million streams, sadly.
Yeah.
That's the direction we're headed.
Sadly enough. Police might be streaming this shit.
Man, damn, interesting time we're living in, man. Well, OG Steve, dog, I enjoyed this conversation. I love to have you on every once in a while, man. Make you a regular on the show. I just dig the vibes. Like I said, you're a very intelligent cat. You know, I like talking to dudes around my age who, you know, aren't on some bullshit. And yeah, hope to do this again. Where can everybody find you, man? If you want to share your info.
I mean, they want to follow me on Instagram. _OG Steve on IG. You know, that's about the only thing right now. I don't got too many platforms and nothing like that, but if they want to follow me, they can follow me. You know, of course, I want regular people, they're going to follow me.
No weirdos.
Not weird trolls and stuff. And well, that's another thing you got out there, too. You got gangbanging trolls. There's people that, you know, they're banging on the internet.
Yeah, sadly, I see them in my comment section all the time. I try to delete all that bullshit.
They got catfish pages and stuff like that, and all types of weirdo shit.
Yeah, man. Different time, Playboy. Well, OG Steve, man, you be good out there, dog. I'll definitely stay in touch with you.
Just give me a little bit of peace, steady job and some food to eat. Just give me a little bit of peace, steady job and some food to eat. Just give me a little bit of peace.